Hey everybody, welcome back to the SuperBake podcast. I'm your host, Baker. Let's talk about stuff. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. So before I get into the material I have for today, I just need to talk a little bit about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Super Bowl. I mean, that was insane. I still can't get over it. I feel like all last week I was still kind of in disbelief. I kept thinking I was going to wake up any moment and be like, and realize it was all a dream. Like, I realize Philadelphia, I don't think they were quite the team that everybody thought they were going to be. Like, they had a relatively easy schedule, I think, throughout most of the season. But so, of course, it looked like they were unstoppable. But the truth is, I mean, I don't think they went up against a whole bunch of incredibly difficult teams. I don't follow the NFL too closely to know that much about how their schedule looked, but my understanding was it wasn't that bad. They kind of got lucky in that regard. But it was a good game for sure. It was definitely a dogfight. Like, 38-35. I mean, come on, that's pretty much down to the wire. And I know a lot of people are, they're complaining about that holding penalty that Philly got against them in the end that, probably was the main reason that we won, but I mean, he was holding the guy. And I mean, the guy from Philadelphia even said in a press conference that it was holding. And I think he held him twice. So yeah, I mean, it was clearly holding. I know I've been seeing a lot of analysts saying that, like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't call the holding penalty, in a game like that late in the game. But it's like, I don't know. I don't quite understand that logic. I mean, if it's holding, why wouldn't you call it? I don't really get that. Like, I've heard, I think it was Bill Burr was talking about that too, and I agree with what he said about it. It's like but he's holding. It was clearly holding, so I don't get that. But yeah, I watched the parade earlier this week, last week I should say. It's Sunday at the time of recording, but yeah, it was cool to see. I'm not like a diehard Chiefs fan, but I mean, I'm from Kansas City, so I root for them, and it was cool to see them win the game. Although I will be honest, that first half was rough to sit through. I really didn't think we were going to pull that off. Like, going into the halftime show, I really thought that was as far as our season was going to go. Like, Philadelphia, I think at that point was up like 10 points or something like that. It didn't seem like we were able to do much, and then we just came back in that second half, and we were making stuff happen. We were making plays happen. Apparently, I think Kelsey was saying when he was on, it was either Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon, I don't remember which one, but I guess he was saying in the locker room, like, Mahomes really got everybody revved up with like his speech to the team and trying to get everybody, all amped up for the second half. And I guess it worked. The results speak for themselves, but it was an awesome game for sure. I didn't see a lot of the commercials, but I know there were a few movie premieres and stuff during that time. But yeah, it was awesome to see, and especially after the Chiefs' last performance in the previous Super Bowl we were in, where we only scored I think 9 points total, and they were all field goals. This was definitely a much needed win for us. So hopefully we'll go back next year, but I'm pretty happy with this. I think this was a good season for us. A good note to end the season on. So anyways, today wanted to talk about a couple things. First thing, I want to talk about the premiere for the teaser trailer for Ted Lasso Season 3, which premieres on March 15th on Apple TV. I'm excited about that. I've talked about the previous 2 seasons. I love that show. It's a fantastic feel-good show, and I'm a huge Jason Sudeikis fan. So yeah, the trailer, not a whole lot to it. Doesn't really give us much in terms of like what's going to happen in the story. It mostly just kind of shows us the characters kind of up to their usual antics. We see the several characters from the show that we all know, Jamie, Roy Kent, Rebecca, Keeley, and a few others creating posters, I guess, in sort of support for Ted Lasso. And of course, it's the iconic Believe poster that Ted posts throughout the first 2 seasons that Nate tears apart at the end of season 2. We see each character basically creating their own version of the Believe poster and kind of giving their own little personal flair to it, which was a nice touch. And we kind of see a lot of their personalities shine through. Like, we see, like, one little thing I noticed in the trailer that I liked that kind of cracked me up was Jamie, like, when he's trying to think about what he's going to put on his poster, he accidentally puts the marker to his tongue, like, because he's not thinking about it. And then we see him kind of wince and we can see the blue dot on his tongue from it. That was a nice little touch for his character. I really love what they did with Jamie's character in season 2. Like, his his whole redemption with his character arc, I think, was done very well. I don't know if there's a lot for him to do in season 3, but regardless, I love his character. Phil Dunster, I think, is the actor who plays him. I think he's done a phenomenal job with that role. So I'm glad that he's, going to be in it for at least this season. We see Roy Kent, who, in typical Roy Kent fashion, he growls at the camera. I also like how he writes believe, but you can just barely see it on the poster. Like, he just did the absolute bare minimum on it. That's such a Roy Kent move. I think he's my favorite character in the entire show. Like, everything about that guy is he just cracks me up. The way he grumbles at people, the way he curses at people, but then he'll still act really nice. It kills me. Rebecca, again, eating the treats that Ted brings her. I like that little touch. I like how you see all these little touches with these characters in the trailer. And then, of course, Sam, who's always just like so happy-go-lucky. Like, he actually draws like a smiley face on his poster, and he's just dancing in the background as he's holding it up. Like, yeah, to me, it was a perfect trailer for the show. And of course, obviously we don't see Nate in this trailer because of what happens at the end of season 2. I mean, if you've seen season 2, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, not going to spoil that for you, at least not in this video. But I like that. I like how it's a callback to the Believe poster. It's a callback to what happens at the end of season 2 with Nate. And that's definitely something that I'm going to be curious about in this one. I think I heard from several sources that this is supposed to be the final season, although I think Jason Sudeikis has been kind of vague as far as like if there's plans to continue it. So, I mean, I would love to see this show go on for longer than 3 seasons, but I totally get it if they just want to end it here. I get it. Sometimes, a show can only run for so long, and I do, if I'm being honest, I do kind of find myself wondering how long they can keep the story going. Like, once he wins the championship, I mean, is there really much else for Ted Lasso and Coach Beer to do in this story? But I think that's just a testament to how well it's written and how well these characters are all acted and portrayed in the show. But I'm really curious to see, what the resolution is going to be with Nate's character, because I know in season 2 he departs from Ted Lasso and from Ted Lasso's team. So I'm curious to see, what's going to be the resolution there. I really like Nate's character a lot. I have mixed feelings about like the direction his character went in at the end of season 2. I know that's kind of been a point of contention for some fans. I have my own thoughts on that, but if you want to hear more about my thoughts on that, you can check out my review for the second season of the show. I'm not going to get into that here, but I am genuinely curious to see how they're going to tackle that this season, as well as the further story and character arcs we're going to see these characters go on. But yeah, I'm excited for this. I'm not currently using Apple TV. I did cancel my subscription a while back, but I'm going to renew it for this show for sure. And to watch Severance. One of my buddies told me about that show, and he highly recommended it, so that's going to be something I'm going to check out for sure. But yeah, when I watch the third season for this show, you can definitely look for my review for that and give my thoughts on that once it premieres. So now I'd like to take some time to give another video game review. That was one of the things I said in my video last year, is I wanted to do more reviews for books and video games this year. And so I'm going to start off with my review of the Sonic Frontiers game for the PlayStation 5. Game released November 8th of last year. And full disclosure, this is the first 3D Sonic game that I've played in probably at least 10 years. I think the last one, to give some context, the last one I played was Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube. So yeah, it's been a little while. It's been a minute. I mean, I've played like some of the side-scrolling games that I used to have. Like, I've downloaded and bought the digital copies of them on newer consoles and played those, but that doesn't really count because I played them before. I'm talking about strictly playing a brand new Sonic game, and it's been a long time. I know there's been other games that have come out like Sonic Heroes, Sonic Colors, and all that stuff, and I haven't really touched them. I like Sonic. I actually used to be a huge fan of Sonic games back when I was a kid, but I've kind of lost interest over the years. So this, I saw this was on sale last year around the holidays. I was able to get it relatively cheap on PlayStation Store, so I picked it up. I think when I got it, it was around, I don't know, $25 or something. So I thought, why not? I'll give it a shot and see how it goes. So yeah, I played through the whole game, and I just want to give my thoughts on it. Spoiler warning, I am going to go into the story a little bit. I mean, not in too great a detail. The story's not super complex or anything like that. It's just mostly an excuse for Sonic to run really fast. But Just a heads up, if you haven't played this game yet and you know are planning on it at some point, if it's in your backlog like it was for me, and you don't want the story spoiled for you, then I would just go ahead and skip this part of the podcast. But just to give a brief analysis of the story, and also sorry for if you hear the clicking sound, it's because I normally have notes on my phone, but today I don't have my phone on me, so I'm just using my computer, so I'm kind of using my mouse to scroll through the notes here. So if you hear any clicking sounds, that's what that is. Apologies, my mouse is close to the mic, and there ain't nothing I can do about it. So anyways, the story. Sonic and his friends, Tails and Amy, are flying through the air on one of Tails' planes, and then they're sucked into a wormhole into cyberspace. From there, Sonic finds himself on the mysterious Starfall Islands and discovers that he must collect the Chaos Emeralds once again in order to save his friends who have been trapped in the cyberspace realm. Throughout the story, Sonic will also encounter the character Sage, an AI creation of Dr. Eggman, who tries to use the power of the island's robots and powerful beings known as Titans to destroy Sonic. Sage acts as kind of the main antagonist of the story, at least throughout most of the game, and she's the reason for the wormhole opening up earlier in the game that sucks Sonic's friends into it. Tails, Amy, and also Knuckles is in this game as well. Their physical bodies get trapped in cyberspace, so now Sonic has to collect, it's like digital memories or echoes of them to try to restore their physical forms, on top of trying to collect the Chaos Emeralds. So Sonic has to use the emeralds to try to save his friends, and also to unlock the mystery of Starfall Islands, as well as the character Sage. And, of course, save the world in typical Sonic the Hedgehog fashion. And that's the story. Really, there's not much more to it than that. I mean, there's really not a whole lot else you really need to know about it. So kind of like what I do with my movie reviews, I'll just give my brief overall thoughts on this game. I liked it. I would not say that I loved it. Like I said, I've never been a particularly huge Sonic fan, at least not for a long time. It was a fun game. I enjoyed it. I would say, the majority of the time I spent playing this title. It's not a game. I mean, looking back, I'm glad that I bought it on sale, and I'll kind of go into my reasons for that later. I'm glad I didn't pay full price for this game. Like right now, it's like I think $60, $65, like on GameStop and Best Buy and stuff like that. I think you might be able to get it a little cheaper on Amazon. I would say definitely get it cheaper if you can. But yeah, I liked this game. I enjoyed it. I did not love it. I'm just going to kind of go into some of the elements about the game. I'll just talk about the gameplay briefly. It feels very similar to the old Sonic Adventure games. If you've played any 3D Sonic game, and I'm making some assumptions here with like games like Heroes and Color and stuff like that, but if you've played most 3D Sonic games, you kind of have a pretty good idea of how the controls work. You use the control stick to move Sonic around, and then you can use, he speeds up, and you can use different buttons to make him boost. I believe in the adventure games, his jump button was also like his homing attack, and he also had like a spin attack. In this game, there really is no spin attack. You do still have like a boost button. You also have a homing button that are actually two different buttons. On the PlayStation 5, your boost button is the right trigger, and the homing attack is the square button on the PlayStation 5. I don't know what it is on the Xbox or the Switch. Then, of course, X also operates as your jump button once again, and you've got other moves that you can learn throughout the game, too. One interesting element they added to this was there's a bit of an RPG element and added into the mix for this game. You collect different little chips from cyberspace that you can use to upgrade Sonic's stats. You have like a skill tree that you've seen in most other RPGs. It's very bare bones in this game. You've only got like maybe a handful of abilities you can learn. And I mean, I don't even remember what half of them were. To be honest with you, I didn't use very many of them that often. There was one ability he gets where he uses his spin attack to attack enemies, and that did a good amount of damage. So I found myself using that more than anything. But beyond that, I really didn't use hardly any of his abilities. So I don't know. It felt kind of weird in a Sonic game, if I'm being perfectly honest. Again, I don't know if that's how it was in previous titles, but it definitely felt kind of out of place in this one. But it was an interesting idea, and I think overall they incorporated it well enough into the gameplay, so I guess it works. But yeah, just an interesting change I noticed in this game. There's also some classic elements in the gameplay too. You'll see there's plenty of moments where you have to go into these sort of miniature levels that are kind of like classic Sonic levels with even some side-scrolling elements added into it. For the most part, the game does a good job of blending 2D and 3D levels together. So what I mean by that is there will be parts of the game where you will be running around in an open world on each of the Starfall Islands. There's 5 islands in total in this game, and each one will have a character that Sonic has to rescue. So like there's an island for Amy, there's an island for Knuckles, and one for Tails, and so on and so forth. And each of those islands will be fairly good size that you can pretty much explore at your leisure, and you can go just about anywhere you want, within reason, of course, within, Sonic's limits. But within those worlds, there will also be kind of smaller little worlds you can go visit too, like little levels you can go to collect essentially what are called vault keys, which you need to unlock to unlock the you need to collect vault keys to unlock the Chaos Emerald. So you need so many vault keys to unlock each one, basically. It's kind of similar to like those collectathon games like Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that. At least that was kind of the impression I got from this game. Again, it's done pretty well enough in this game. I think they did a good job blending it in there, so it feels pretty good for the most part. But anyways, there'll be sections in the world where you'll be running around, 3D space, just going wherever you want, and then suddenly you'll jump on a bumper and Sonic will get launched and the camera angle will switch and suddenly you'll be in a side view. It'll be a side-scrolling level. And there'll be a lot of that in this game. And while I think it's done pretty effectively for the most part, it definitely feels kind of jarring at times, especially the first time it happens. I kind of found myself thinking like, wait, what's going on? Why can't I go forward anymore? Because I would be stuck on this side-scrolling part when I really wanted to keep going forward. And in those moments, it could definitely get kind of annoying. It kind of felt like it was sort of impeding me at times of getting to my goal. Because you have markers in the game where you can run to, that you need to run to. Like, it'll kind of mark your current quest and where you need to go. And there would be times like where I'd be trying to run to it and then I'd get stopped because I got stuck on this 2D section of the map. Those could get kind of annoying, and it felt like they were becoming a lot more noticeable especially towards the latter half of the game. I feel like I really noticed it when I got to, I think it was the 3rd island where Tails was at, I believe. I feel like I was really noticing it happening a lot more there. Interesting other elements of the game too. There's also mini bosses of the game. In terms of boss fights, there's I think from what I remember, 3 or 4 really big fights against these mechanical creatures called Titans that you have to go up against. But there's also smaller mini boss fights throughout each island that you can take on as well. They're usually marked with a red X on your map. And they're not too difficult. They're just sort of a way for you to just kind of collect some experience and get some tokens or items that you need to unlock other stuff. I think they drop gears that you use to unlock the smaller levels within each world. That's another big thing about this game too, is the fact that it is an open world. I've talked about that before. That was a big marketing thing for this game too. They marketed it as one of the first, if not the first, Sonic game where you're actually in a big open world. And that is cool. There is that that is true. It is an open world, although it does feel a little limited. I'll kind of go into that here a little bit shortly, but it's a cool idea. I mean, the idea of, Sonic's a fast character, so the idea of having a lot of room to run around and explore is definitely a cool idea for a character like this. So I'm glad that we finally got a game like that. Just kind of surprised it took so long. As far as the characters go, you've got your classic characters, Sonic, Tails, Amy, Knuckles, Eggman, and then, of course, the character Sage that I mentioned before. Also, Big the Cat is in this one, too, which surprised me. There's a few fishing levels. I think each island you go to has, at least one fishing level where you can spend, these purple coins that you collect to... I think that's how it works. I only fished once in the game. I never really had much interest in it, if I'm being perfectly honest. I remember the fishing levels with Big the Cat and Sonic Adventure, and I hated them with a burning passion. I think it was where you had to catch his frog buddy, Froggy or whatever, and it was I hated it so much. The controls were so just terrible. I still have bad memories of that. I loved everything else about Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 except for the fishing segments with Big the Cat. I hated those parts so much. But those are in this game, but fortunately they are very minimal. They're definitely kept in the background, so you don't have to do them. Yeah, I guess you have to do them if you want to get 100% achievement, but I didn't do that for this game. Pretty much any game that I play, it's a pretty safe assumption that I'm not going to platinum it. I've never platinumed a game before in my life, so yeah, if I'm ever talking about a game on this show, just assume that I did not complete it. I don't do that. The closest I ever came was with Miles Morales, and I've still got I'm only at 85% completion of that game, and I doubt I'll complete that one either, but Anyways, regardless, I did not complete this game. Once I beat the main story, I was definitely done with it for sure. But seeing Big the Cat, seeing his cameo in this game, yeah, it was cool. It was a nice little callback to the adventure games for sure. So now I'll just kind of go over, just briefly, some of the pros and cons of this game that I noticed. So first of all, the positives. One, the game is genuinely fun. I found myself enjoying it for the most part. I would say the majority of the time, like I said before, I did enjoy playing this game. Sonic's controls, he feels pretty good. He controls relatively well most of the time. He, like when he runs fast, he has like his little boost button. That's another thing I forgot to mention too. The right bumper is your boost attack as well. I think it propels you forward, but it also boosts you. I don't remember if I mentioned that. So you have like a meter for your boost. So that's how long Sonic can run at high speed, which, doesn't really affect too much in the game, but it is I thought it was kind of an interesting thing to give him sort of like, I guess you would call it a stamina meter with his boost. It's kind of similar. It's like a little wheel. It's kind of similar to Link from Breath of the Wild. When you're climbing mountains and stuff like that, his little stamina meter will show up. It's kind of similar to that, except it's for when Sonic is running at full speed. But anyways, yes, he controls pretty well, both in and out of combat. Traversing the world as Sonic does feel pretty good for the most part. The combat in the game is also surprisingly good as well. I don't think I mentioned that before, but Sonic actually does punches and kicks in this game to fight enemies. And like I mentioned before, you do unlock new abilities and stuff throughout the game that do kind of help make combat a little bit more interesting, gives you a little bit more variety and moves that you can use against enemies, and that's nice. That's a nice little touch that they added in there. In some places, it feels like maybe there's a little too much variety there. Like I feel like you really only need your basic jump and punch attack to really take down most foes, but it still works pretty well. The story it's lighthearted enough for kids, but it also has some slightly heavier tones for adults. There's some stuff with the character Sage that comes up, particularly towards the end of the story, where she starts to become more of a protagonist type character. Again, I don't want to go into that too much. If you haven't played the game and you want to see it for yourself, I'll leave that up to you to play it. But yeah, the story does tackle some lighter and heavier elements, I think, pretty well. So there's stuff there for kids and adults. I think it's not strictly just a kids game. The soundtrack of this game, I do want to give props to that. The soundtrack is awesome. So I guess the lead composer for this was, and I hope I'm not butchering this, Tomoya Otani, who was the lead composer and did most of the music work for this. And they apparently also did the music for several other Sonic games, including Adventure 2 Battle, and I think Colors, and also Heroes. So this is clearly somebody who is familiar with the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise. So they obviously know what they're doing. The results speak for themselves. But there was a few songs that really stuck out to me. They play them during some of the big Titan battles where you're playing as Super Sonic. Also, yes, Super Sonic is in this game as well. Those are in the big boss fights, and they are really cool. Actually, for me, those are probably some of the highlights of this game. And they play several songs that feature vocalist Kellen Quinn from Sleeping Sirens that sings for these songs. That was a lot of words that started with S right there. Holy crap. Just rather than trip over my words there. But yeah, those sequences with that musical score with Kellen singing in those, like with the Titan battles, those were awesome. Like that was definitely the highlight for me, because usually with some of these games, especially once I get a certain ways into a game, I kind of just will often tune out the sound. I'll either mute my TV and I'll just kind of plug in my headphones and listen to a podcast or something like that. Like I did that a lot with games like Hades and stuff, where after a while I kind of feel like I got the gist of what was going on in the story and I didn't think I needed to hear anything. But man, I'm really glad that I listened to the soundtrack for this game. It really is awesome. I might have to go and try to check that out and see if I can find it on like Spotify or something. So yeah, the music especially is really good. And now we'll get into some of the negatives of this game. So I mentioned before that the controls are pretty good most of the time. Well, the parts where they're not good unfortunately stick out quite a bit. At least they did for me. So the problem with this game is it definitely feels like there were parts of this game that were not tested properly. There are moments in this game that absolutely infuriated me. I felt like the majority of the time when I died in this game, it was because of poor controls. And I am willing to admit when I die because of my own fault. When I played Elden Ring, I died a lot in that game. I died a lot. I got my butt kicked constantly throughout that game. But I'm willing to admit that the vast majority of those deaths were my fault. It was because I was an idiot, I blocked when I should have attacked, I dodged when I should have blocked, or so on or so forth. I went to some area that I had absolutely no business being in and got spanked wholeheartedly. I'm willing to admit when I make mistakes, but this game, yes, there were the deaths that were just because of my own stupidity, but I really felt like the majority of the time it was because Sonic would not do what I told him to do. There are times in this game where it felt like I would just die because Sonic would just not listen to me. And a lot of that is because of the boost ability from R2. It's fine when you're running, but when you jump, you almost don't want to boost, especially if you're in a tight area. If you're like on a small platform and precision is key, I do not recommend jumping and using that R2 boost button, because something about the momentum with Sonic in this game will really screw you up. There were so many moments in the game where I would just barely use that button to give Sonic a small boost just so he could kind of make a jump, and he wouldn't stop. Even when I would tilt the control stick back, he would just keep going and completely fly off the stage. And in the smaller levels that you have to play, you have like a time score. So the longer you take, the worse your score is. Like in most of the smaller levels, there's a grading system they give you. Like there's certain grades you can get. Like if you collect all 5 red rings, if you complete the level within a certain amount of time, just for completing the level, if you complete the level with like 100, with so many rings or whatever, like I think it's usually like between 70 to 100, you get extra rewards for that, for completing those assignments or tasks. But the thing is, the timer keeps going even if you die. So even though you basically get unlimited tries, your score will still keep going. Your time will still keep going, so you can get deducted points for that. So it's really frustrating when you're in a moment where precision is key and you need to make a jump well, but Sonic is still moving really fast and you can't stop him. There were a lot of moments like that in this game, and they really started to add up, especially towards the end. There were times in the game where I was really nervous and my palms were sweaty, not because I didn't think I could do the task in front of me, like complete the level. I knew I could do it. It's just I didn't know if Sonic was going to listen to me. There was a lot of moments like that in this game. Like there were definitely parts in the game where it really felt like they did not test it properly. And I don't know, maybe this game was rushed, maybe not. Overall, I think the game works. When the game works, it's very fun and it feels good. Sonic feels good to control. I think he controls very well. But when it doesn't work, it's very noticeable. And for me, at times, it could be downright infuriating. Another negative aspect of this game, I'm just going to be honest, I didn't care for the RPG elements, like leveling up Sonic and all that stuff. It just felt out of place in a game like this, and honestly, I didn't feel like it made that big of a difference. So like there's different resources you can collect, and you can talk to these characters that will upgrade your different stats that you have. Like you have defense, health, attack, and speed. You can also increase your ring capacity, which sort of operates as your health. I think in the beginning you can only carry like 400, but you can upgrade that. I don't remember how much it is. I think there's like 99 levels or something like that. I got pretty far, but I didn't level up too much. But I didn't, except for like ring capacity, I don't feel like any of the other stats when I leveled up made any difference, at least nothing noticeable in combat. Like I would level up my speed, and I don't know if they're referring to like Sonic's attack speed or his running speed, but I upgraded his speed a lot, probably more than any other stat, and I still never saw any difference anywhere, whether it was when I was running around or attacking enemies. So a lot of those stats, again, with the exception of ring capacity, just felt sort of worthless. So it kind of made me wonder like why they even put it in there in the first place. I don't know, maybe it was just something to kind of give you more something to do, I don't know. But it definitely felt weird and out of place and just not very impactful. Another negative, and I don't think I'm going to dock the game points for this, but you really only can play as Sonic in this game. You can't play as Tails, Amy, or Knuckles, which I found disappointing, especially given the verticality of some of these levels. Like, all the locales of the islands are very different. Like, the first island you go to is just kind of an open field, but the next island you go to where Knuckles is at is a giant desert with dunes and giant hills and stuff. And then the one after that where Tails is at is a giant mountain, like a snowy mountain area. It would have been cool to see like Tails and Knuckles in these because, Knuckles can glide and Tails can fly up and, he can fly and reach places that Sonic can't. It would have been nice to incorporate them into these. Maybe if they make a sequel, maybe they can figure out a way to put those characters in there. But yeah, I don't know. I found that a little disappointing. Again, I'm not going to knock too many points off this game for that, because I know it is Sonic Frontiers, obviously. It's not Sonic and Friends Frontiers, but Still, it just felt like a missed opportunity to me. And really, Tails, Amy, and Knuckles, like, I mean, in terms of the story, they've got a fairly decent sized role, but in terms of the gameplay, because you don't play as them, they definitely feel like an afterthought. There were times I definitely forgot about them quite a bit. Also, too, another negative aspect. So I mentioned before that this is an open world game. Each of the islands, you can pretty much go wherever you want within reason. The only thing is, though, the open world feels pretty empty. Like, yeah, there's obstacles you can explore. There's stuff you can do to get different additional resources and stuff like that. But, I mean, there really aren't any other NPCs in the game. Sonic, or Tails, Amy, and Knuckles, when you're trying to rescue them, are really the only other NPCs you can talk to. I mean, there's like one or two other characters you can talk to level up your stats and stuff like that, but there's not much else going on. Like, there's no towns or villages or anything else. So it's like, despite these worlds feeling pretty big and wide open, they feel devoid of really much to do in the way of like story or anything like that or objectives. I feel like that's a common thing I'm seeing in a lot of open world games now, like where, yeah, the world you're in is big and vast, and it on the surface it seems like there's lots to do, but really when you get down to it, it actually is pretty empty and devoid of anything really interesting. And I definitely feel like that was the case with this game throughout quite a bit of it. Like, I found myself just kind of sticking to the main story and not much else. Yes, there was stuff to explore. You can, by doing certain tasks, you can unlock more of your map or complete more of your map, so you kind of get a better idea of what's out there and what's left to explore, but I just lost interest in doing a lot of that pretty quickly. So, in summary, I guess I would say, while I did enjoy this game, I don't know if I can recommend it, to be perfectly honest with you. I guess whether or not I would recommend this game to you really depends on your taste in games. If you're a die-hard Sonic fan, I guess I would say give it a try. But I would say regardless, I would say if you're not a Sonic fan, I would say either skip this game or maybe just wait for it to go on sale. Because right now, like I said before, this game, you can get it at GameStop and most retailers for like around $60, so basically full price. But the thing is, the story itself is only about 15 hours long. If you do all the side content and stuff like that, it'll probably take you about twice that long, maybe between 30 to 40 hours, roughly. But yeah, like I only focused on the story. I didn't really do any other side content, and it took me just north of 15 hours. I think right around 16 to beat this game. So yeah, like at 15 hours, I don't know if I can recommend spending $60 on this game. Again, unless you are a diehard Sonic fan and you've got to have the latest Sonic game. But if not, I would say just wait a while. Wait for the price to go down. If you want to get a game for your kid and they're a huge Sonic fan, I mean, they'll like this game just fine. And I don't think this game's going to give them a lot to come back to. I don't know if there's a New Game Plus. I actually didn't check that after I beat it. I don't think there is. But regardless, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't really plan on going back and playing this game again anytime soon, even if there is a New Game Plus. It's fun and I enjoy it, but I don't know. I didn't love it. And I don't really know if there's a lot here to keep me coming back. If I had to give it a letter grade, I guess I would say probably maybe a low B. Yeah, that might be kind of mean. I guess I would say a B, like maybe right around an 85 out of 100. So good, not great, nothing particularly impactful or memorable about it, but a fun game. I guess I can't help but wonder if this is maybe like a glimpse into what could be. Maybe a better open world Sonic game is down the road. Personally, what I would love to see is GTA, like a GTA style world with Sonic in it, where you can run around these big cities as well as these big open landscapes and stuff. There's NPCs, there's tons of people there, like side quests, stuff to do. Something like that, like GTA or Red Dead Redemption, that kind of world, but with Sonic in it. That was kind of what I was hoping from this game, and I was a little disappointed that I didn't get it. And, and also have Tails, Knuckles, and Amy and other Sonic characters as playable characters in there. Like a bigger, much more revamped version of Sonic Adventure or something like that. I think if they had given us that, I think this game would have been a lot better. As it stands, though, I mean, it's a good game. Like I said, it's gotten good reviews, I think, all around. People have been pleasantly surprised by this game, and for good reason. I think it deserves it. It is a good game, it is fun, and I did enjoy it. I don't think there's much here for you if you're not a diehard Sonic fan. So, like I said, that's my recommendation, if you want to call it that, for this game. But like I said, good game. I enjoyed it. Just, I would say, unless you're a diehard Sonic fan, I would say wait for it to go on sale or just wait a little while on this one. All right, guys, I think that's going to conclude this podcast. Once again, I am on Anchor, Spotify, and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Later.